members that there is quite a bit of chattering going on right now, and it's very difficult to hear. And so, and out of respect for the persons who are going to be making their statements, and then during questions and comments, I would ask people to keep their chatter down, not just here on the floor of the House of Commons, but as well as up in the stands. So. Thank you very much. So, statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Sydney, Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commend and congratulate a Cape Breton teacher and a musician. Mr. Carter Chason, a teacher at Alison Bernard Memorial High School in Eskasoni, who was awarded 2020's Music Counts Teacher of the Year Award. This award recognizes inspirational and passionate Canadian music educators' impact on students. We all remember that teacher who went above and beyond the call, who did more than instruct, but inspired. Carter's dedication and talent has helped students reach their amazing musical potential over many years. Recently, Carter's rendition of the Beatles' Blackbird, sung in the Mi'kmaq language by Emma Stevens, has been viewed more than 1 million times on YouTube and was nominated for a Nova Scotia Music Award for Best Music Video. When Sir Paul McCartney himself praises your video publicly, you know you've reached greatness. Carter, I congratulate you on this well-deserved honor.
The honourable member for Banff Airdrie.
Madam Speaker, in the face of challenging times for local businesses in Alberta, the small business community in Airdrie has banded together. Lindsay Cybulski and other local business owners in the community joined forces and created a Shop Local Facebook group. The reaction to the group has been incredibly positive. New members joined from across Airdrie, and the Facebook group dramatically expanded in size. Provides a platform through which to share positive reviews, spread the word about exciting events, and allows for residents of Airdrie to explore local business options. The community came together, and the Facebook group has transformed into a movement that supports and empowers local businesses in Airdrie. Shop Local Airdrie has led events such as a flash mob, lunch date, a selfie challenge that encourage community members to take a selfie with a business and its owner, and a Midnight Madness event where local businesses were open late for Christmas shopping. The Facebook group now has over 11,000 members. The Shop Local Airdrie movement has become a unifying force, supporting small businesses and reminding us all of the great strength in our community.
The honourable member for Outremont.
As Parliamentary Secretary, I deal with many women in business in Montreal and throughout the country, and I want to tell them what we're doing to help them. Our government launched the very first Women Entrepreneurship Strategy, and we have already put $2 billion on the table, Mr. Speaker. Listen, EDC just doubled the amount available for women-led and owned export firms, and the BDC has a specific fund for women.
Hundreds of thousands of women export, or providing access to capital through the BDC or our Women's Entrepreneurship Fund. We are committed to doubling the number of women-led businesses in this country because a woman's place is at the head of the table, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Rivière.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In an era of climate change, and considering the importance of our actions on the health of our planet, I want to highlight an entirely remarkable initiative set up by the students of the Polyvalente Saint-Jérôme in my riding. A dozen young people decided to set up, through their own initiative, a mini sorting center project in their cafeteria to reduce their waste and environmental impact. This green cafeteria project, supported by the Monique Fitzbach Foundation, counts on the support of many stakeholders in my community, including the RCM for Rivière-du-Nord, the Youth Employment Hub for Rivière-du-Nord, and the Tricentris Sorting Center. I would like to call attention to this initiative and the students who launched it: Rosalie, Manuel, Victoriane, and Émilie. I can assure you that you have my unwavering support and that of my colleagues for the Bloc Québécois in fighting climate change.
Honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, on March 15, 2019, a terrorist stepped into 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand during Friday prayers and gunned down 51 people and injured 49 others, women, men, and children. On his weapon, he had the terrorist's name who shot worshippers right here in Canada at the Quebec City Mosque on January 29, 2017. There is no mistaking that this attack was a result of Islamophobia. The consequences of this hate are families who are mourning their loved ones today and every day. It should never feel normal to see news about attacks like this, but violent hate crimes seem to be more and more commonplace around the world. In face of this, we as elected officials need to speak up against hate and work towards a more inclusive Canada. It falls on every one of us to not just send our thoughts and prayers, but to lead with action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
Well, member for Battleford Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to highlight the Kindness Wins initiative in my community of Lloydminster. Beyond Borders Circle of Change awards Kindness Win grants to schools who pick a project that intentionally embodies that message. Last week, I had the opportunity to join Madame Michaud's grade 2 class at École St. Thomas, who looked beyond our community to spread kindness. These creative and thoughtful students crafted crosses and cards with messages of gratitude for our Canadian men and women in uniform. These students had previously made Christmas cards for our serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces and wanted to demonstrate their continued appreciation. Mr. Speaker, our Canadian Armed Forces selflessly safeguard the freedoms and values that we enjoy every day here in Canada. It is truly encouraging to see these young students understand and appreciate their sacrifices. I would like to congratulate École St. Thomas students for a job well done, and I invite all members of this House to help spread their message that kindness wins. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to congratulate the organizers, sponsors, racers, and volunteers of Cane's Quest 2020. Labrador is home for Cane's Quest snowmobile race, and it is true some of the most rugged and challenging lands in Canada's north. Mr. Speaker, this race is one of tremendous endurance. Through 3,100 kilometers of land, over 19 checkpoints with 100 snowmobilers, it is one of the most enduring races on the planet today. This year we also had 2 women's teams, one from Canada and the US and one from Finland, and I want to give a big shout out to them. Mr. Speaker, Cane's Quest really pushes both the individual and the machine to the limits. It takes skill, it takes stamina and determination. I want to congratulate all of those that took part, but to congratulate the winners of the Cup, Rod Pye of Lodge Bay, Daryl Burdett of Cartwright, the Mighty Hollanders on their championship win in Cane's Quest.
L'honorable député de Marc.
The honourable member for Marc-Aurèle Fortin. Mr. Speaker, last week, I was delighted to visit a business in my own riding of Marc-Aurèle Fortin, GA International. This company is a world leader in the field of cryogenic labels. GA International's clients have very specific and non-standard needs. For instance, a lab might need labs to identify beakers that will be cryogenically stored and subject to extreme temperatures, ranging from negative 196 degrees Celsius up to plus 121 degrees Celsius. On behalf of the Honourable Ménageli and as part of the Economic Development Program, I'm pleased to announce that this exceptional company in Quebec will receive $162,000 in order to implement a resource planning system. This funding will help to create 36 new jobs that will be adding on to the existing employment force. This will allow them to double their protection before the end of 2020. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Yellowhead.
Mr. Speaker, I was raised on a farm where I learned the value of money and the importance of financial planning. With every budget the Liberals put out, they continue to add billions of dollars to our national debt. This isn't budgeting, this is reckless spending. There are now so many uncertainties in the Canadian economy, with companies like tech and investors like Warren Buffett unwilling to invest in Canada, and now combined with the coronavirus, the future of the Canadian economy is looking pretty bleak. I am sure the Liberals will paint a pretty picture that navigating our turbulent economy will be like gently floating down a stream in an inner tube, and it might even be enjoyable. I wonder what theatrical words the Prime Minister will use to describe why we are heading straight over Niagara Falls.
The honourable member for Mississauga East Cooksville.
Mr. Speaker, March 8th was International Women's Day. I'd like to highlight a community, not-for-profit organization from Mississauga, Indus Community Services Centre. It has served my community for over 33 years, providing newcomer services, housing information, health services, and senior care. I was happy to hear about their women-oriented programs. Through advocacy, counseling, empowerment, and safety for women, they provide culturally responsive counseling to victims of domestic or family violence and abuse. Each one of us has a role to play in creating more positive and an equal world. I would like to thank organizations like Indus that have made such dreams possible for women to participate freely, fully, and equally in our economies and in society, free to realize their full potential. Every woman deserves to live a life free of fear from abuse or violence. Let us continue to celebrate women's contributions, stand up for women's rights, and listen to women's voices, not only on International Women's Day, but every day of the year, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon Grassroot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last weekend, the University of Saskatchewan women's basketball team defeated Brock 82-64 to claim the youth sport women's basketball championship. Yes, for the Huskies, it was their second bronze baby in the last 5 years. Now, 17 years ago, I was at the news conference when they decided to hire head coach Lisa Tomaitis. The program then was dead last in the country. Now, with Coach Tomaitis, they built the #1 team in the country, and I should add, Lisa will be our head coach of the national team for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Sunday, though, was a total team effort. Player of the game, Summer Maskowicz, had 20 points, 9 rebounds. The championship MVP, Sabine Ducote, hit 8 3-pointers and had a total of 24 points. Katrina Filipinko, 11 points. Libby Eacock, along with Carly Alstrom, put in 9. Congratulations to the Husky program. They have done us proud.
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, I was prepared to rise today to give a statement regarding what I believe to be the Liberal government's failures to stand up for our energy industry, specifically by not supporting Teck Resources' Frontier Oil Sands mine. But today, another partisan speech is the last thing that my constituents or Canadians need to hear. There will be plenty of time for holding the Liberal government to account. Today, as we face the pandemic of COVID-19, we learn that the Prime Minister and his wife have entered self-isolation. We learn of new cases every day. I urge Canadians, do not give in to fear. We are going to carry on, we are going to survive, and we are going to be stronger than ever. I want to extend my heartfelt prayers to the Prime Minister and his family and to all Canadians who are suffering. God bless you all. Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to one of the finest Vancouver Kingsway citizens I have had the privilege of knowing and serving, my dear friend Mrs. Perla de Peralta. I am deeply saddened to report of Perla's untimely passing on March 8. Perla was one of those rare persons who was universally loved, respected, and cherished. She was kind, gracious, and generous. She was wise, patient, and considerate. She carried herself with extraordinary dignity and decency. Perla was a pillar of our community at large and an icon of the Canadian Filipino community in particular. Her leadership of many Filipino groups, most recently the Phil Kane's New Era Society, spanned decades. Throughout, she demonstrated outstanding competence, integrity, and energy. So go to your Delphin, your family, your Lord, and the angels, my dear Perla. You will be deeply missed, but never forgotten.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to pay tribute to a citizen of Saint-Hyacinthe who's a real star of our downtown. Jeannie Barré has brittle bone syndrome. That means any single move she makes could lead to a broken bone. Last month, however, she completed her 5th marathon in Miami in 4 hours and 47 minutes. This achievement is so far out of reach to almost everyone living with this illness. Janie is on the cover of Pace magazine this month. Her father, Bernard Barré, who ran against me during the last election, which doesn't diminish the great respect I have for him, told me during the 1 hour, 2 hour relay in Saint-Hyacinthe that Janie, she's got guts, and he's right. As this week follows March 8th and International Women's Day, I would like to honor the very first woman in Quebec to become a wheelchair marathoner. Thank you.
Honourable member for Bruce Grey Owen Sound.
June of 2017, the Royal Canadian Legion first sounded the alarm on the veteran disability application backlog crisis, 2 years after this current government took office. By December, the Canadian press was reporting that the backlog had grown to 29,000 cases, a 50% increase since March of that year. But here we are 3 years later, having spent $42 million, and the backlog's gotten worse, having now grown to more than 44,000 applications. Today at committee, we received testimony that on February 24th of this year, the minister said to the union leadership in a closed-door meeting that, quote, "I don't really control the department," unquote. The union left the meeting, quote, "not feeling positive and disappointed," unquote. They expressed concerns that nothing was going to change. Sadly, this came as no surprise since the minister told the Veterans Affairs Committee 2 days ago that the department runs the department. Mr. Speaker, we must ensure veterans are getting the care and support they need. It's time to end the backlog crisis. Veterans deserve better. They've earned it.
The honourable member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, I've said it before in this House, and it bears repeating. Acadia University is a key institution in my riding of Kings Hants and, of course, the entire Annapolis Valley. Acadia is not only an excellent institution for higher learning and education, creating important relationships around the globe for Nova Scotia, the university also has a rich sporting tradition. Acadia's sporting tradition will add another chapter this weekend as Acadia plays host to the University Cup, a hockey tournament that brings together the top varsity programs from across the country, which is fitting, given Windsor in Kings Hants is the birthplace of hockey. This weekend, 8 teams will vie for the title of national champion at the Scotiabank Centre in Halifax. Acadia begins the tournament with a quarterfinal matchup tomorrow evening against the University of Ottawa. As I stand proudly in this house wearing the Acadia Axeman jersey, I would like to wish all teams and players an enjoyable experience in Nova Scotia, but particularly to the members of the host team, we're in your corner. Go Acadia, go!
Very good. Oral questions. Question orale. The honourable leader of the opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure I speak for all members when I convey our best wishes to the Prime Minister and his wife and any other parliamentarians who may be affected by symptoms, and wish him a speedy recovery. Mr. Speaker, the World Health Organization has... Mr. Speaker, the World Health Organization has declared coronavirus to be a pandemic. And while the government says that the risk to Canadians is low, countries around the world are taking decisive action. Italy is one of the hardest hit countries, and they have initiated many measures to lock parts of that country down. But when the final flight out of Italy landed here, passengers were not screened. No temperatures were taken, and no one was quarantined. They were given a pamphlet and sent on their way. Is the government convinced that a departmental pamphlet is enough to reduce the spread of this disease?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me begin by addressing all Canadians at this anxious time. As Canadians, we are fortunate to have an outstanding healthcare system and fantastic medical professionals. We need to continue to listen to our medical experts. They are telling us that the situation will get worse before it gets better. They also say that Canada is well prepared. Our government will do whatever it takes to keep Canadians healthy and safe, and I know that is the commitment of all members of this House.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, communities across Canada are already reporting concerns about potential shortages of critical equipment like ventilators. This is a vital piece of medical equipment for managing symptoms of the disease. In countries like Italy, when cases spiked, local resources were overwhelmed and doctors were forced to make heartbreaking decisions. If what happened in Italy happens here, the results could be catastrophic. So, has the government secured a supplier to provide additional ventilators?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our absolute priority is the health and safety of Canadians. The federal government is and will continue to provide leadership in partnership with the provinces, territories, and all Canadians. We are already leading a bulk national procurement effort to ensure Canadians have the necessary medical equipment. And I want to be clear, this is not a time for us to quibble about federal and provincial responsibilities. This is a time for Canadians to work together, and that's what we're doing.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, other countries around the world have started to flatten the growth curve of the coronavirus by implementing tangible decisions to stop the transmission. This government has decided not to impose mandatory screening at airports. They have decided not to impose mandatory quarantine procedures. They have decided not to implement any limits on traveling, not to implement any restrictions on travelers entering into Canada. Can the Deputy Prime Minister inform the House on what evidence has the government based these decisions on?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by assuring Canadians that Canada's public health system is outstanding and our public health officials are doing a terrific job on the ground. The health and safety of Canadians is our #1 priority, and our government is guided in all of our decisions by the advice from medical professionals and by scientists. Enhanced screening and detection processes are in place at all international airports, at land crossings, and at ports. We are constantly evaluating the measures in place and the developing international situation.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, we've seen large sports organizations such as the NBA, the MLS, and the NHL take concrete measures to protect their athletes from the coronavirus. We've seen the U.S., Italian and Chinese governments take rigorous measures, but the Quebec government has implemented exceptional measures, including the cancellation of all events with more than 250 people. Here in Canada, we're still waiting, unfortunately, for a plan to protect our border and prevent large public gatherings. Canadians want to know, when will this government reveal its plan, notably in terms of these two respects, to take tangible measures like the WHO is asking for? Mr. Speaker, I would like to tell all Canadians that we are lucky to have an exceptional healthcare system and wonderful healthcare professionals. We have to continue to listen to medical experts who tell us that the situation will get worse before it gets better. They also say that Canada is ready. Our government will take all necessary measures. The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, WHO has declared that this is a national pandemic, global pandemic, and that all countries should take measures accordingly. So, in addition to borders and public gatherings, the Prime Minister has announced looser employment insurance measures, but this won't help workers who lose their job as a direct result of the coronavirus. This represents thousands of Canadians and Quebecers. We would like to know, when will the government announce concrete measures to support workers affected by this crisis in their companies, because the announced measures have nothing for them? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government understands that the coronavirus has already had a significant impact on the global economy and the Canadian economy. We're going to support Canadians who may not be able to go to work because of this virus or quarantine. We reduced the waiting period for employment insurance from 2 weeks to nothing, actually. And
we're committed to extending employment insurance benefits. And we're going to continue to monitor the situation economically and to take new measures as necessary. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to wish the Prime Minister a speedy recovery. This morning, the National Assembly in Quebec expressed the concerns of all Quebecers about the coronavirus. It unanimously called on the government to establish a real COVID detection protocol for all travellers coming to Canada, notably by equipping border services personnel. Too much time has already been lost. Will the government respect Quebec's unanimous will, and how will it today tighten border screening? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to speak directly to the Prime Minister's situation and that of his wife. He was advised to continue his daily activities because he does not have any symptoms himself, but out of caution, the Prime Minister decided to isolate himself and to work from home until he receives the results from Ms. Gregoire Trudeau. Thank you for your well wishes. The Honourable Member for Saint Jean. Municipalities have confirmed that there aren't enough safety measures at the borders. First responders have said this. Customs officers have confirmed this. Even travelers themselves have. Today, Quebec's National Assembly unanimously confirmed that border controls must be tightened. We're starting to hear many people say this, that there's no border protocol. Will this government finally establish real screening measures for all people entering Quebec and Canada? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the health and safety of Canadians is our priority, absolute priority. We're following all public health advice based on evidence and scientific data. We've increased screening activities and detection activities were added in all international airports and on border crossings and points of entry. We continue to monitor this situation very closely. The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby. Our thoughts also go out to Ms. Gregoire and to all the victims. With the Liberals' announcement on COVID-19, Canadian workers are still left out. People who don't have sick leave cannot stay home to recover. They will lose pay and maybe even their job.
60% of Canadian workers do not qualify for employment insurance. So if we want to ensure the virus doesn't spread, people have to be able to stay home if they're sick and still pay their rent. When will the government guarantee that every worker who has to self-quarantine gets the financial support they need to feed their families?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are very aware that the coronavirus is having a significant economic impact around the world and in Canada. And we know that we must support Canadians who may not be able to work because of illness or quarantine. That is why our government announced this week a $1 billion coronavirus response package. That package does include significant measures to support workers who need to miss work because they are ill or are in quarantine. Now, of course, as the situation develops, our government will be monitoring it and is poised to take more steps.
Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think they really understand the issue. The COVID-19 pandemic does not affect everyone equally. Many cannot call in sick and still collect a paycheck. Many of these people are women and come from marginalized groups. They work in the service industry and on the front lines. It is in everyone's best interest that they have the ability to self-quarantine if they need to. So what is taking so long? These are real people who need real solutions, and the promises made are not going to keep it for those people. So when is action going to happen?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is absolutely aware of the economic impact of the coronavirus, and we are also aware of how important it is to ensure that there are no economic barriers to Canadians doing the right thing, which is staying home if they are unwell. And I want to thank all of the Canadians who are doing that. Our government announced this week a $1 billion coronavirus response package. That is just a first economic step. It does include measures to support workers who need to stay at home. We are monitoring the situation, and we will continue to act with alacrity.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Well, yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the World Organization declared the global COVID-19 outbreak as a pandemic, and today the organization's Director General recommended a four-pronged strategy. 1, prepare and be ready. 2, detect, prevent, and treat. 3, reduce and suppress, and 4, innovate and improve. The scale and speed of transmission around the world is of grave concern to Canadians. What proactive measures is this government taking to implement this strategy to combat COVID-19?
The Minister of Health.
Speaker, and I think the member opposite has outlined many of the steps that we are taking and in fact have had as a strategy since we first noticed those outbreaks in Wuhan so long ago. And it's hard to imagine that we're here now, and it was very encouraging to hear a member from the opposition get up and use his standing SO31 to talk about the fact that as Canadians we're all going to have to pull together. This is a public health crisis that we have not seen in recent times. All of the measures that the member opposite said are important. We've been working in all of those 4 critical areas, and I'm happy to report more as the time goes on. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, more needs to be done. All around the world, major events are being cancelled, and companies are proactively taking action to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The NBA and the NHL have suspended their seasons. The International Olympic Committee is considering hosting the Olympics without spectators, and major companies like CIBC, Royal Bank, BMO are finding ways to introduce social distancing. Will this government show leadership and introduce telework for federal employees?
The Honourable Treasury Board President.
Thank you. I'm very happy with this question because as the President of the Treasury Board, we have the responsibility to work not only with public servants but also to ensure a safe workplace and to protect the health of everyone who works there, and that is why the Treasury Board has very clear directives to ensure that when the time is right, the appropriate services will be offered to employees of the Canadian government. The Honourable for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Yesterday, I asked the Prime Minister about additional urgent control measures at our airports, and his answer, he reassured Canadians, saying that our airports are properly prepared. A few hours later, we learned that passengers returning from Italy just received a pamphlet about the coronavirus. The Premier of Quebec has asked every traveller returning from abroad to self-isolate voluntarily for 14 days. Can this government implement tighter control measures for all travellers coming from abroad?
Public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend opposite for a very important question. Mr. Speaker, the health and safety of all Canadians is utmost priority and remains our priority. Based on the advice and the leadership that we have received from our excellent public health officials, CBSA has implemented enhanced screening and detection processes at all of our international airports and as well at our land, border, ferry, and rail ports of entry. Our officers observe and question every traveler who may be a risk to Canada, including those who have been coming from Tier 3 regions. And in addition, they are also conducting the initial screening of travelers who are symptomatic, referring all who are experiencing such symptoms to public health staff for further examination.
The Honourable for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the U.S. announced serious measures to protect its citizens. One of these was to ban flights from Europe for the next 30 days. Here in Canada, passengers arriving from Italy just breeze in without being tested. Yesterday, we learned that one of these passengers from eastern townships in Quebec tested positive for COVID-19. Canadians are concerned. Is this government satisfied with current measures to protect Canadians?
Minister for Public Safety.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me assure the member opposite that we are in regular contact with our allies and international partners from around the world and discussing issues of mutual concern regarding the safety of our citizens and the safe and efficient movement and trade among our countries. Mr. Speaker, we'll continue to monitor the situation clearly, but let me assure this House that we have very effective and enhanced screening and detection measures that are in place for all persons traveling from affected regions, and for all who enter our country who may be symptomatic, they are quickly referred to our public health officials who are doing an outstanding job of keeping Canadians safe.
For Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the minister said between 30 to 70% of Canadians could become infected with COVID-19. These numbers are alarming, especially with a growing seniors population and many Canadians with underlying health issues being directly at risk. Is the minister confident that Canada has a sufficient supply of beds, ventilators, testing kits, and general supplies to keep Canadians healthy and safe?
I can tell you that as late as this morning, I had a conversation with my provincial and territorial partners who are working diligently to make sure that their healthcare systems are ready. That is the intent behind the $500 million that was part of our announcement yesterday, to make sure that they can rapidly access money. We're obviously working together on this, and obviously we know that there may be more, and we stand by the provinces and territories as they prepare their healthcare systems. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're starting to see community spread of COVID-19 in British Columbia. The NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, and others have suspended their seasons. Large events are being cancelled, and governments across the world are shutting down to avoid spread. The minister has said between 30 and 70% of Canadians may become infected. What is the government doing to show leadership and encourage social distancing to prevent further community spread?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, and the member is absolutely right. The way that we conduct ourselves as Canadians now can significantly decrease the rate of infection in Canadian society, and part of that is making decisions as individuals about where we will go, whether there are large gatherings where we will go, reconsidering going to areas where there are a large number of people. That might include places like churches, it might include places like community centres, it might also include concerts and various sporting events. Mr. Speaker, we have technical guidance that supports the provinces and territories to make those decisions on a provincial level. Of course, under federal jurisdiction, we'll spare no expense to protect Canadians' health. Thank you.
The honourable member for Montarville. Tomorrow's meeting with premiers has been cancelled because it's unfortunate, because we finally could have found out what Canada's contingency plan is for COVID-19. The Deputy Prime Minister even required each of them to present a contingency plan. So we're just getting little shreds of information from day to day. Will this government please finally reveal its contingency plan to reassure the population? The Honourable Minister of Health.
We provide technical briefings every day to our official critics. Certainly, we're open to sharing those more broadly. It's really important that as Canadians, as leaders in our various communities, that we have information to protect Canadians' health and safety. I will examine what further we can do to make sure that everybody understands how we can ensure that the people that we represent are safe and healthy.
The Honourable Member for Salaberry-sur-Roi. Mr. Speaker, yesterday still, travelers arriving from Italy at Trudeau Airport were shocked to see that they were not asked any questions. They just gave them a pamphlet, even though they were arriving from one of the countries with the largest clusters of the disease in the world. Today, still, the government granted Europe the lowest possible risk level in its travel advisory in the midst of this pandemic. Mr. Speaker, there is a balance to be struck between panicking and doing nothing. Will this government finally establish real measures for coronavirus screening?
Minister of Public Safety.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me assure through you, the member opposite, that we in fact have implemented very significant new enhanced screening and detection processes for all our CBSA officers. And in addition, we have made sure that they have the training and the equipment that they need to do this important job. For all persons who enter this country from affected regions, they are subject to questioning by our CBSA officers. For those who are determined to be symptomatic, they are quickly referred to our public health officials. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the member opposite that our officers stand ready. They have the tools and the training they need to do their part to assist in this public health crisis.
The member for Beauport, Côte-au-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, around the world, events have been cancelled because of the coronavirus. Quebec festivals are facing the same concerns. Whether it's the Bay Saint-James St. Paul Festival, a touristic and cultural festival that's very important, or the Summer Festival of Quebec City, or other festivals in Montreal, everyone's wondering, can festivals move forward with their programming? And if organizers cancel, will grants and subsidies be maintained? What to do about losses because of ticket sales and sponsors? Will they be compensated? We have to plan for this now. Please. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question, and I would agree with her, as do other members, that the health and safety of Quebecers is the most important. Now, in the cultural sector, we have heard these concerns, and it's good that we discuss this, and because they are concerned. And that's why I've had good conversations with ministers, and I will be able to discuss this with tourism ministers across the country when we have our teleconference. Thank you.
Lloyd-Minster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tech Frontier's application withdrawal was yet another devastating blow to Western Canadians. That decision was a direct result of the Prime Minister's anti-energy death by delay tactics. Canadians know that Liberals killed tech. Recent revelations that senior cabinet ministers were actively campaigning for its rejection prove that. Mr. Speaker, among the most vocal was the Minister of Agriculture. How can the Minister of Agriculture expect to have any credibility with farmers in Western Canada when she attacks our region?
Good here.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to growing our economy while also protecting the environment. We remain focused on ensuring that good projects can move forward. Albertans certainly are facing real economic challenges. We work together to ensure that there are better economic opportunities for all. As Premier Kenney himself said the other day, we are seeing declining demand at the same time as increasing supply. It is a very significant challenge that we need to work on together, and we certainly intend to work with the government of Alberta going forward.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Good news for the government, but that's not what really happened. The Globe and Mail revealed this morning that high-ranking ministers, important for Canada's economic development, did everything in their power to block the Tech Frontier project. We knew this happened, and the Globe and Mail said who was responsible for this. It was the Minister of Agriculture. How can the Minister of Agriculture, on the one hand, say that she defends Western farmers and farmers across Canada, and on the other hand, ferociously oppose a project that would help Western Canada and the entire economy? Can she answer this question herself this time? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Our government is committed to supporting the economy and protecting the economy, the environment, and we're going to continue to ensure that large projects will move ahead in due course. We are moving towards a greener economy, and our government will continue to work with stakeholders and all provinces and territories to ensure good jobs, clean growth, and lasting growth for all regions of the country.
For Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, the Agriculture Minister wasn't standing up for farmers before, and she's not standing up for farmers now. And we know why, because she was too busy ensuring that Canada's oil and gas workers remain unemployed by opposing the Tech Frontier mine at Cabinet. Her focus should have been reopening lost trade markets, removing the carbon tax from farm fuels, addressing the processing capacity for Ontario ranchers, or removing illegal blockades, things that actually would have had an impact on Canadian agriculture. Instead of advocating for farmers and standing up for Canadian agriculture, why is her top priority attacking Canadian energy workers?
Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that there's some revisionist history going on in the House. The CEO of TAC made the decision to withdraw the application before it ever came before Cabinet for consideration. But I would say that we are very clear that the oil and gas sector in this country is going through an extremely difficult period of time. We are seeing declining demand and growing supply. That is something that Premier Kenney himself has pointed out is a significant challenge going forward. We intend to work productively and cooperatively with the provinces and the territories most affected to ensure that we have a good path forward, to ensure that good projects succeed, and that is exactly what we are going to do.
I just want to clarify, it's my duty to make sure that this chamber functions well, and I just want to thank everyone for the first half. We hit the half point, and suddenly everything went sideways. So hopefully I'll be able to thank everyone for the second half. The Honourable Member for Churchill, Kwatnut-Aski.
Mr. Speaker, First Nations in northern Manitoba are scared of the impact of COVID-19 on their communities. People in the Island Lake region are sounding the alarm. No running water, overcrowded housing, no hospital, nowhere to self-isolate and get treatment. Meanwhile, the government is talking conference calls, hand sanitizer, and testing tents. These are first world responses to a third world reality. This government needs to get real about what First Nations are facing on the ground. These communities need urgent infrastructure now and before the winter road season shuts down. So what will this government do to take COVID-19 on First Nations seriously now?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize that despite historic investments in housing, the deeply concerning conditions of housing infrastructures in many Indigenous communities face, and we're continuing to work towards a long-term solution. In light of the COVID-19 virus, we are exploring all options to address these challenges, including providing temporary isolation facilities and additional health staff for communities as needed. These supports for Indigenous communities are absolutely not limited by financial capacity. We continue to work closely with communities to coordinate resources. They are and will be there.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, if PowerPoint decks could stop a pandemic, this government would be the world champion in preventative health. And I'm not saying that to be flip, but 2 months into this crisis, isolated First Nations are waiting for the basics like hand sanitizers and gloves and masks, let alone ventilators. If COVID-19 hits a community like Bearskin Lake or Kashechewan, we're in the nightmare scenario. Because how do you self-isolate in a home of 21 people full of mold? And so the minister's plan is to bring in tents. What, in James Bay in March? That ain't going to cut it. When are we going to see a sense of urgency to protect the lives of First Nation people?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite for attending the technical briefing this morning with my staff. The funding announced yesterday as part of the Budget 2019 emergency investments is a start that enables us to take immediate action in communities to reduce the risk of spread, as well as to respond should cases arrive on reserve. The reinforces support for Indigenous communities are not limited by financial capacities, and we're working closely to coordinate those resources with communities. We're providing supplies such as bottled water, hand sanitizer, personal protective equipment to communities as needed. We'll continue to work with our partners to ensure that Indigenous communities are prepared to respond to COVID-19, and we'll continue to adapt our plan as needed.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Mr. Speaker, since 2008, an organization in Halifax, Hope Blooms, has been making a difference. It's had a measurable impact on food security and social inclusion. It actively engages youth to grow food in its 4,000 square feet of organic garden. Through hard work, its members are improving social inclusion and food security. They even appeared on Dragon's Den, where they secured $40,000 to build a new greenhouse. The Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food was in Halifax last week to meet with them. Can she inform the House how the government is supporting this kind of project?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to meet with extraordinary people last week in Nova Scotia. Bloom
is one of the first organizations to receive funding from the local Food Infrastructure Fund. With this funding, they will build 8 new cooking stations. This will help an additional 65 families and 70 at-risk youth to stay healthy. This is exactly why we have put in place the first ever food policy for Canada to ensure all Canadians are able to access a sufficient amount of safe and healthy food. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Introducing syringes into our federal prisons so that inmates can safely inject illegal drugs. Inmates at the Edmonton Women's Institution have protested against the prison needle exchange program. They don't want it, Mr. Speaker, and yet rather than listening to these women, the Liberals are risking the lives of inmates and correctional officers in the name of harm reduction. Stony Mountain Prison employs correctional officers in Manitoba who have told me they are extremely concerned for their safety. What do the Liberals say to our brave correctional officers who fear for their lives?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the prevention and treatment of infectious diseases within correctional institutions not only protects the offender population, but it also protects the correctional personnel and the Canadian public. Mr. Speaker, it is harm reduction. We conduct a thorough assessment, a risk assessment, before any inmate is approved to participate in the needle exchange program. Appropriate safeguards are in place to ensure that the needles are safely stored. And, Mr. Speaker, it's important to recognize that since the introduction of this program in 2018, there have been no safety incidents involving either staff or inmates.
Honourable member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Public Safety Minister isn't listening to his own corrections officers. The corrections officers and staff at Stony Mountain Penitentiary in my riding are extremely worried about their own safety. Why? Because this Liberal government is putting needles in the hands of hardened criminals. Stony Mountain is home to some of the most dangerous offenders in Canada, and the last thing we should be doing is arming inmates with contaminated needles. Why is the minister putting the illegal drug use of convicts ahead of the safety of our hard-working corrections officers?
Speaker, the safety of our corrections officers is a priority for us, and I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, our corrections officers actually understand the principle of harm reduction. And in fact, we've been working very closely with them. They've actually proposed new models of different harm reduction models. We've worked with them to design it. It's being piloted in institutions in Alberta and in Nova Scotia and Ontario in this spring. It shows that there's a high level of cooperation and mutual effort to achieve the shared goal of safer, healthier correction environments. Thank you, sir.
Prince Albert.
Mr. Speaker, on September 11, 2018, a spokesman for the Finance Minister commented on the government's retaliatory measures against steel and aluminum tariffs, saying that they are committed to making sure that every dollar raised on tariffs is given back in a form of support for affected sectors. But the PBO estimates that the government will actually spend $105 million less than it collected. Can the Minister of Finance answer? Where did the money go?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
The government will always stand for Canadian workers and Canadian interests. In response to the unjustified U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum, we provided targeted relief and countermeasures for Canadian manufacturers. As we've always said, all money collected through the retaliatory tariffs will go back to support the industry. With the unjustified tariffs removed, we're going to continue to work with the industry and expect that additional compensation could be provided over the next 2 years. More than $1.3 billion to date in support has been delivered to defend and protect the interests of Canadian workers, and additional support remains available for those who need it.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister himself stated that the revenues collected from these surtaxes will go to support affected industries. But a closer look at the PBO's report shows that isn't the case. Out of the approximate $1.3 billion collected, only $894 million went back to the steel and the aluminum industries. The rest was spent on administration and programs that could be accessed by any industry in Canada. Mr. Speaker, why hasn't this Liberal government kept its word and sent every dollar back to the negatively affected aluminum and steel industries?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, I note that the question is nearly identical to the one I've just provided an answer for, so I apologize in advance if I sound like a broken record. We provided $1.3 billion to date in support for the steel and aluminum sectors in response to these retaliatory tariffs. In response to the unjustified tariffs, the case remains that every dollar collected will go back to support the industry. With the unjustified tariffs now being removed, we're going to continue to work with the industry and expect that additional compensation will flow over the next 2 years. Mr. Speaker, we're going to ensure that we're there for the industry as the need may arise. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, given the presence of the coronavirus, we need to do everything in our power to make sure that workers who feel sick stay home. In that regard, eliminating the wait time for employment insurance is a step in the right direction. But given the processing times for applications, much more has to be done. Is the government willing to ease the rules and automatically, from day one, pay out EI benefits to all quarantined individuals who make that request? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The health and safety of Canadian workers is a priority for our government. And that is why we have taken immediate measures to deal with the COVID-19 threat. These are measures that are being implemented throughout government. And we have removed the wait time for EI sick benefits. We will continue to consider other measures that will be able to help Canadians, including help for Canadians who are not eligible for employment insurance. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased that health transfers are being increased to deal with the coronavirus. In doing so, however, the government is admitting that the current transfer amounts are not sufficient to meet the needs of those who are sick. Ottawa should not be doing its part in health only when there's a full-blown crisis. It should always do so. Will the government make that transfer increase permanent and increase it to 5.2 as Quebec is asking? Honourable Minister of Health.
Leadership and the leadership of the Prime Minister, health transfers have significantly increased since we took office. We'll continue to work with the provinces and territories on health transfers and make sure they keep up with the cost of health care. But I will say that it's very important to remember that our country is facing a public health emergency right now. That's why we made the announcement yesterday of an additional $500 million immediately to provinces and territories to make sure that they have the resources they need to deal with any potential health surge. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Regina Louvain.
Yesterday, we all learned Liberal logic. The Prime Minister said proudly, Canada is attracting new investments. Now, follow me if you can. Warren Buffett invested $200 million in a wind farm, which, taken alone, is a good thing. However, days earlier, Buffett pulled out $4 billion from an LNG project in Quebec. I'm just a farm kid from Saskatchewan, but here's some help for the Prime Minister. 200 is generally bigger than 4, but, and here's the kicker, you always need to count the zeros that follow. Mr. Speaker, is this Liberal logic the reason why the budget must balance itself?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
If the member is interested in counting zeros, I direct him to the 1 million Canadians, that's one with 6 zeros, who are no longer living in poverty. Mr. Speaker, the reality is foreign direct investment is up 18% year over year. Because of the investments we've been making in the economy, more than 1.2 million Canadians are working today that did not have a job. The kinds of investments that we're putting into the economy are putting people to work, raising kids out of poverty, and I hope the Conservatives would agree that that is a good thing.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, in December, Jeffrey Kraft was murdered in Lacombe. The two accused are charged with second-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and robbery with a firearm, and are now free on bail. One of the accused is also charged with breaching conditions. Residents in my riding have lost faith in the justice system due to the Liberals' soft-on-crime approach that puts the interests of offenders ahead of victims and their families. Was this the hoped-for outcome that the minister had in mind when he and his party ran through legislation which forces the courts to give bail at the earliest opportunity and with the least conditions?
Oh, no.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, our government introduced Bill C-75 in the last Parliament.
in order to prevent people from entering into the justice system, into that revolving circle of the justice system, without having any impact on reducing crime, Mr. Speaker. We introduced good measures to fight crime efficiently, Mr. Speaker, to fight crime fairly, to protect victims, Mr. Speaker, but also to prevent the over-criminalization, particularly of certain peoples, like Indigenous peoples or like racialized peoples in our criminal justice system.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Infrastructure is unable to provide a list of the Liberals' $186 billion worth of projects. It's not surprising. The Parliamentary Budget Officer asked his department what the investment plan was, and he was told there is no plan. The Toronto Sun gave us a clue, however, Mr. Speaker. Infrastructure Canada lost track of 199 laptops and tablets. What does the minister plan on doing to find those laptops and the department's billions of dollars worth of projects? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Assure this House that we take security very seriously, and as well as the need to keep equipment from getting lost or damaged. Department audits are routine and helpful, and we make them public to ensure accountability. In this case, a total of 7 computers, not 200, were not properly recorded in a new inventory system, and we're engaged in efforts to ensure that we have a complete inventory to include those missing 7 computers. Has the honourable member read the report, or just the headline? If he read the report, which is available online right now, he would see for himself that the headline is indeed overblown. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Canada Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, maintaining a strong working relationship with our municipal partners is an important component of this government's mandate. As a Member of Parliament for Canada Carleton, I understand the special importance of working hand in hand with the City of Ottawa on matters that affect our region. As the Minister responsible for the NCC and the Minister of Public Services and Procurement, the Minister recently met with the Mayor of the City of Ottawa. Could the Minister please tell us how that meeting went?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the member for Canada Carleton for her question and for her continued hard work. I recently met with the Mayor, Jim Watson, about the needs of the city and how we can work collaboratively together to build up the city and the region. The parliamentary precincts renovations alone have rendered $3 billion worth of investment into the region. I look forward to working closely with the Mayor and to continue working hard for the city and the region. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Later this year, Wayne Sands in my riding will be made unemployed by Transport Canada. Wayne is 79 and was refused a renewal of his marine medical certificate for ocean-going vessels. But Mr. Speaker, Wayne is the captain of the SS Moi, an amusement park ride at Heritage Park for kids and tourists to enjoy 25-minute paddleboat rides. Having the same rules for container ship captains as you do for amusement park rides is typical Ottawa knows best attitude. Will the Transport Minister agree with me the situation is ridiculous and immediately approve Wayne's license?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague actually brought this to my attention about 3 days ago with the letter that he brought to me, and I undertook to look into it. I would ask him to be patient until I get back to him with an answer.
Honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, a Montreal man found guilty of sexually assaulting a 4-year-old in 2015 was charged recently with making and distributing child pornography during the period he was having court-ordered supervised visits with the child he abused. This man was sentenced to a mere 22 months in prison for abusing this child. The minister has stated that he will look to eliminate mandatory minimum sentences to give even more discretion in sentencing. Does the minister really think that justice is being served in a case like this?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, cases like these are obviously tragic, and our hearts go out to the victims. Mr. Speaker, it's also true that in our criminal justice system, we rely a great deal on the facts and the evidence in any particular case, as well as giving, in the common law tradition, giving judges the ability to assess, the ability to assess sentences as they move forward. Mr. Speaker, we have promised to continue to look at and improve the criminal justice system as we move forward. But I will say, Mr. Speaker, with all certainty, that the previous Conservative government's tough on crime stance was actually quite stupid on crime, Mr. Speaker, and we will move forward with the evidence.
I want to remind the honourable members, order. I want to remind the honourable members to use parliamentary language and be judicious when they're using terms in the House. The honourable member for West Nova.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is addressed to the Minister of Innovation. Cet après-midi.
This afternoon at the Official Languages Committee, we will be hearing Stats Canada on important questions to be considered for the 2021 census related to numbers of rights holders in Canada. Time is running out, and we need to know why there has been no confirmation that these questions, which were approved, will be on the next short-form census. Mr. Speaker, when will the government confirm that these important questions will be on the 2021 short-form census?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our government recognizes the importance of promoting and protecting the rights of language minorities in Canada, especially when it comes to education. Contrary to the Harper Conservatives, we have asked Statistics Canada to determine what are the best ways to obtain quality information in order to know what those numbers are. Thank you.
Bonavista Buren Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, my riding and communities across the country depend on the Canadian Coast Guard to keep our waterways safe and flowing all year round. Although we have been lucky with light ice season this year, it has been detrimental to coastal communities in the past. Can the Minister tell us how the Coast Guard is ensuring that our waters remain safe and open during the winter months?
Good question.
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Bonavista Buren Trinity for his question. Last spring, we announced the single largest investment ever made to renew the Canadian Coast Guard fleet, including 6 new icebreakers. I'm thrilled to say that I was able to announce $12 million contract to the Shelburne Ship Repair for crucial work to one of the workhorses of our fleet. This investment will support up to 55 jobs and extend the life of this vessel, which is critical to our to maintaining the service in this country. The women and men of the Canadian Coast Guard deserve the best that we can give them, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we're making sure they have the tools that they need. Thank you very much.
Member for St. John's East.
Mr. Speaker, Newfoundland and Labrador is facing incredible financial struggles, and we need this government to take real action, but they keep failing. After the recent state of emergency in Newfoundland, New Democrats called on this government to help workers who lost up to a week's wages. The Liberals said they'd help, but those workers are still waiting. Now the government is telling Canadians they're here to help workers impacted by the coronavirus outbreak, who will lose wages because they won't be able to replace. Since they still haven't delivered on the commitments they made for an 8-day state of emergency in my province, how can any Canadian believe they're going to come through this time?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure everyone in this House that we are determined to support workers through the COVID-19 crisis. We have taken steps as of yesterday to waive the waiting period for sickness benefits. We're looking at means to help workers that do not qualify for EI. We will make sure that it's easier for workers to make strong public health choices to ensure that they do not have to work and that they can still pay their bills and support their families. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Fredericton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Experts testified last month at the Veterans Affairs Committee that treatments for family members of a former soldier were cut off or not approved, that there's a backlog of 18,330 cases, que les temps d'attente moyen pour le traitement d'une demande est
Waiting time is 32 weeks.
Time for women and the Francophone. The Minister of Veterans Affairs was tasked to ensure that the government lives up to its sacred obligation to our veterans and their families. Mr. Speaker, I want to know when and how the government will start acting concretely on that commitment. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate my honourable colleague's question. I certainly agree the backlog is totally unacceptable. But we have received an increase of 90% in first applications at Veterans Affairs, and also they've doubled, basically, the overall applications have doubled since 2015. We keep innovating our system by digitizing files, reducing paperwork, and continually actually to say yes. Mr. Speaker, we have invested $10 billion in Veterans Affairs. We are going to make sure that veterans get the services they truly deserve. Thank you.
And that's all the questions for today. We have a point of order. We've got a few of them. Point of order for the Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned, I rise on a point of order today. And although I'm a new member to this House, Mr. Speaker, I understand that we have rules that we're intended to follow. And we have had very important discussions in this House over the last 2 weeks on advance payment programs, which is a loans program to support farmers. And any member of this House, I appreciate them bringing it forward. The member from Foothills said, and I quote, this is from the Hansard, "We have asked for extensions on the advance payment program loans to waive interest fees and to give agriculture some sort of assistance."
I'm afraid we're getting into the territory of debate. I'm going to have to cut the member off. I'm sorry. L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, I call for unanimous consent for the following motion. Be it resolved by the House to give Raif Badawi the honorary Canadian citizenship so that he can get the consular services he needs in Saudi Arabia. Does the Honourable Member have unanimous consent of the House to move this motion?
J'entends quelques non.
I hear a few nays. I'm sorry. Another point of order. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Raif Badawi deserves consular services from the Government of Canada to help get out of jail and rejoin his family in Sherbrooke. The government has expressed its support. That's why I call for unanimous consent of the House to pass this motion, that the House give consular services to Raif Badawi and to call on Saudi authorities to give him access to those services. Does the Honourable Member have the House's unanimous consent to propose this motion? The House has heard the terms of the motion. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Carried.
We now have the Thursday question. The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It being Thursday, I'd like to ask the Government House Leader what business he intends to bring forward to this House for the remainder of this week and the Monday when we return. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. This afternoon, we will continue debate on the NDP Opposition Day motion. Tomorrow, we will resume debate on Bill C-4 on the Canada-US-Mexico trade deal. We hope we can wrap that debate up by afternoon.
From the Constitution Week, we will follow on Bill C-7, medical assistance in dying, Bill C-8, conversion therapy, and Bill C-3, CBSA oversight. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the House that Monday, March 23rd and Thursday, March 26th shall be allotted day. Merci beaucoup.
Order. I just want to remind everyone that we have business to take care of, and it's nice to see everyone discussing things, but just do it quietly, please. Orders of the day.
Government orders, business of supply, resuming debate on the opposition motion in the name of Mr. Davies regarding pharmacare.
The Honourable Member for Brampton North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll start by saying that I'll be sharing my time with the member from Dorval, Lachine, LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to take part in today's opposition motion debate on pharmacare. Ensuring that Canadians have timely access to therapeutic products, including prescription drugs and medical devices, is a clear priority for our government. A strong regulatory system capable of efficiently assessing and monitoring therapeutic products as they move from concept to market is necessary in order for Canadians to have timely access to the products that they need. I'd like to speak to you about the progress being made in Canada to further improve our government's approach to the regulation of these important therapeutic products. Health Canada has been working towards a more agile regulatory system that better responds to healthcare system needs. This commitment to improve access to necessary prescription medications and medical devices was supported through funds allocated in Budget 2017. Health Canada has undertaken a number of initiatives to better serve the needs of Canadian patients in this area, including aligning regulatory processes with healthcare partners and international regulatory authorities, building capacity to be able to respond to changes in technology, using real-world data to bring more drugs and devices to Canadians, and appropriately manage risks once products are on the market. Modernizing the emergency provisions in the Food and Drug regulations to arrive at a less burdensome process for drugs accessed through the Special Access Program, and facilitating access to unauthorized drugs to address public and military health emergencies